Fatal crash that took place in 2023 is now going to trial.
As First Alert 6 Brian Mastery reports, jury selection began today at the Douglas County Courthouse.
The crash scene closed Dodge Street in front of the University of Nebraska-Omaha for hours. It's September 2023. It's 10:30 on a Friday night. Investigators allege Dr. Mark Carlson was racing someone in his Mercedes when he lost control and smashed into oncoming traffic. Crash data indicated the surgeon was going 101 miles per hour with the gas pedal floored moments before impact. The driver in the other car, Anna Bozma of South Dakota, was killed. Her boyfriend injured. She was 22. Anna had just graduated from South Dakota State and started graduate school. Friends said she planned to be an occupational therapist.
Through interviews with witnesses as well as security footage.
62-year-old Mark Carlson spent 7 weeks in the hospital. Once released, he was booked on manslaughter charges. Trials are about evidence. In the 16 months since the fatal crash, attorneys from both sides have been arguing over what the jury will hear. Today, District Court Judge Dwayne Doherty shared a roadmap. For example, the defense can call an expert witness to testify that Dr. Mark Carlson had been diagnosed with syncope. That's a condition where one faints. But the expert is prohibited from giving his opinion as to whether that happened the night of the crash. And despite the state's objections, the judge is also allowing a defense accident reconstruction expert to give his opinion on Carlson's consciousness or unconsciousness the night of the crash. From the Douglas County Courthouse, Brian Mastery, First Alert 6.
The driver the state alleges that Mark Carlson was racing against that night is on the witness list. Opening statements expected sometime tomorrow.